Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. At the end of the day, everyone's just trying to get through dinner without being the subject of the next family gossip column. Today in the rLounge, someone's getting roasted, but it's not the turkey. Up first, sometimes the real feast is the drama that gets served up alongside the mashed potatoes. Am I the a-hole for leaving my family without a turkey after my mom criticized my fiance and said she wouldn't be a good wife and mother? 29 male. A few weeks ago, I got engaged to my fiance, Julia. I love her very much and 100% sure she's the one I want to marry. I've always been close to my mom, but sadly Julia has never been her cup of tea. Julia is very career-oriented and cannot cook or decorate to save her life. My mom, on the other hand, prides herself on being a great cook and having the house perfect. In the past, she's expressed concern that Julia and I are too different and she won't be a dedicated wife and mother. I've always thought that these criticisms were unfair and continued to pursue the relationship. We went to my family's house for Thanksgiving this year, and usually my mom prepares everything herself. Strangely, when Julia called and asked if we could bring anything, she asked if Julia could do the turkey. As I mentioned, Julia has very little cooking experience and told my mom she was worried about ruining the meal. My mom told her she should just try and that she'd have to learn to cook at some point. Julia was stressed about making the turkey and also has been extraordinarily busy with work. Instead of cooking, we decided to pick up the turkey from Whole Foods. Julia was excited that she could contribute and also didn't have the stress of ruining the meal. When we got to the house, my mom asked Julia how she prepared the turkey. Julia said sheepishly that she'd purchased it from Whole Foods. My mom was furious. She said she trusted Julia to make the turkey and said that she prides herself on serving a home-cooked meal to her guests. Julia apologized and said she just wanted to make sure the family had something enjoyable and that the turkey we bought would be better than anything she tried cooking. My mom spent the next hour pouring and whispering to her sisters. I pulled her to the side and asked if everything was okay. My mom said she asked Julia to make the turkey and she couldn't even be bothered to try it. She said this showed a lack of respect and also an unwillingness to grow up. My mom proceeded to tell me that she doesn't think Julia is the one for me and is worried about her ability to care for herself and our children. I was fuming. I told my mom that Julia is amazing and her lack of cooking skills is not an issue for me in the slightest. I said that if my mom couldn't respect my fiance, I didn't want to spend the holiday with her. My mom said my fiance is the one who doesn't know how to respect others, and I'm delusional if I can't see that. I ended up taking the turkey and telling Julia we were leaving. We drove across town and enjoyed a wonderful night with her family. Julia and I are both devastated, but I've assured her that this is my mom's issue, not hers. About half an hour ago, I got a call from my sister. She said we ruined Thanksgiving by leaving and also taking the turkey. I said I didn't realize that they'd want the turkey since my mom was so critical. My sister insisted that it was a misunderstanding and that cooking means a lot to our mom because it's how she expresses love. She interpreted the lack of effort as Julia not making an effort to bond and assimilate with the family. My sister is asking me to apologize, but I feel we're the ones who are owed an apology. I'll also note that my mom has never once asked me to make the turkey, and it seems like a double standard that she suddenly expects Julia to do it. It also seems like she's trying to turn my wife into someone she's not. Am I the a-hole? Let's see what the opinion of the community sounds like. The first comment comes from a profile that has the achievement for being a top 1% commenter. My in-laws started to complain to my husband shortly after we were married about the things I didn't do or didn't do the way they wanted me to. He told them not to make him choose between his wife and them because they wouldn't be happy with the choice he made. OP needs to tell his mother the same thing. The OP replies, "Yeah, I need to have a come to Jesus talk with my family at this point." The next person chimes in, "She 100% set Julia up to fail. She has an issue that she doesn't cook, so when she offers to help your mother gives her the most difficult and the most important cooking task for Thanksgiving dinner, she was expecting Julia to bring something inedible so she could laugh and reinforce her point to you that a wife who can't cook is not good for you. Julia found the loophole where she could not cook but still contribute, and therefore proved that in 2024 a woman does not need to cook if she doesn't like it. And your mom is spinning this insulted narrative and changing the goalposts after the fact, so Julia still looks like the bad guy. Please don't subject her to that again." The next comment says, "Not the a-hole. Sounds like your mom is really on a power trip and can't stand that your fiance has replaced her in your life." The OP replies, "I agree. It's crazy because she's been so nice my whole life, but seeing how she's treated my fiance has really changed my view of her, sadly." One more thought from the community, from another profile with the top 1% commenter badge. "Your mom set up Julia. She knew she'd struggle with that turkey. But that's why she asked her to take it, so she could have this moment of making her feel less than. If you know folks can't cook, you never have them cook the centerpiece of the entire meal. Good for you for standing up for Julia. Unfortunately, you will be doing this the rest of your life with your mom, not the a-hole. Your mom clearly wanted Julia to fail so she could sit there in her apron, smugly clucking about how she could have made a better turkey, while everyone else suffers through her unsolicited, overcooked opinions. So no, you're definitely not the a-hole here, OP. What do you think? Up next, the classic, I made a joke about your first marriage, and now I'm public enemy number 1. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend next time then, after I missed her wedding? We are childhood friends. We have a brother-sister relationship. This gal married at age 23 for the first time. Her husband was a nice guy, good-looking, good character. They got a divorce 1.5 years later because my dear friend wasn't feeling it anymore. After some time, she found someone else. No, she wasn't cheating. This guy is someone I approve of too. Sadly, I got sick and hospitalized just before the wedding and couldn't make it, so she and her husband visited me. We had some laughs and she said, I wish you were there with us too. I wanted to have my third dance with you. Context: first dance is for the groom, second for the father, and third is for the brother if bride has any. To lighten the mood, note that I was under heavy medication, I blurted out, don't worry, I won't miss the next one. After I said her husband was laughing on, and she slapped me and left. A week has passed and she doesn't speak to me. Edit. I didn't think this post would blow up like that. I thank you all for the comments and insights. Am I the a-hole has no consensus spot, but OP received both not the a-holes and you're the a-holes. Let's get some relevant comments. The OP should apologize to his friend if he thought the joke was terrible and might have hurt her feelings. The OP responds, I will apologize. I got another epiphany while writing this. I know even though her husband found the joke funny, she might have taken it as a blame for her for the first divorce, which I do not. Another commenter says, you are dealing with an illness in the hospital and heavily medicated, so I'll give you a pass. And considering her first divorce is because she wasn't feeling it, well, it's not unreasonable to think she might divorce for petty reasons. Still, apologize to her, tell her it was the meds talking, and that you hope she and husband number 2 have a long, happy marriage. Not the a-hole. The OP replies, I will. One note, she was very civil about her first divorce, and they separated amicably. It was more like, you're an awesome guy, but we are not compatible, kind of not feeling it. Another commenter says, not the a-hole, it was funny. She slapped you. That is not okay. Everyone is kind of glossing over that. I would count that friendship over if it was me. No matter how insulted you may feel, hitting someone is wrong. You are heavily medicated and recovering. She should be thankful you or the hospital don't press charges, taking into account the staff didn't see what happened and report it. The OP replied, even if they reported, I wouldn't press the issue. I am not a pushover by any means, but we have 20 years of history. Our relationship was akin to siblings, so a slap is nothing to me. I have another comment. I took it as a, oh my god, you're terrible, friendly, playful slap on the arm, not an actual slap across the face kind of slap. The OP replies, the slap and the silence is the reason why I wrote here. If it was something playful, I would tease her more, but she got very upset. Yet another comment. Not the a-hole. It's possible she's ignoring you because she's embarrassed about slapping you. Have you had any contact at all? Through a husband or family? I'm not making an excuse for her slapping you, just stating a possibility. The OP replies, I asked around today. Her husband and she went abroad for a honeymoon. Her family laughed at what happened and assured me she will get over it. Her mom said we were too close to remain angry at each other, but I may have to wait for her to contact me. Update. November 4th, 2024. 3 days later. My friend contacted me and invited me for drinks. They were back from their honeymoon, and we went to a pub we frequent for another round of celebration since I missed pretty much everything. We both apologized to each other, me for the joke and her for slapping me. I asked about the silence. They told me it was a combination of both being abroad for honeymoon and feeling awkward after the slap. She admitted she found it funny after she cooled down. Her husband found the joke hilarious apparently, but he made me promise to pay the alimony if they get divorced, so now I have motivation to make this marriage last as long as it can. Aside from that, everything is cool. We got to have the dance I missed too. Some final relevant comments. First up, it's disturbing that her slapping you is brushed under the rug as an equal offense to your words. She should be profusely apologetic about hitting you over a comment she didn't like. Glad she thinks it's funny now, but you're way more forgiving than I would be. The OP replied, "Don't worry, she was extremely apologetic about that. Plus, when you have 20 years of history, a slap is very easy to forgive." One more commenter said, "You and your friends are totally the a-hole for being reasonable people and depriving us of weeks of ever-escalating dramatic twists and turns in the saga of nutcases by communicating like actual adults. What is the world coming to? What is this sub coming to? I'm glad you guys patched it up. Best of wishes to you all." The OP replies, "I apologize for depriving you of drama. Thanks for the best wishes." Well, that backfired a bit. Maybe that slap might have been a painful but necessary jolt to get things back on track. Sometimes we all need that kind of wake-up call to really see what's important and what's worth moving past. In this case, the friendship here sounds like it's strong enough to overcome a slap and a few awkward days of silence. But that's not the case for everyone, right? That's still physical violence. Hopefully you all can laugh about it in years to come. I mean, if you can't take a joke, right? You tell me. What would you have done? Last up, a brother holding on to a grudge like a dog with a bone. Am I the a-hole for inviting my nephew to my wedding despite his estrangement from my brother? I, 33 male, am marrying my fiancé, 37 male, this winter. We're putting together the guest list to send the invitations out and have run into an issue over my nephew and my brother. My brother, 38 male, was 18 when his girlfriend told him she was pregnant. They ended up moving in together and my brother decided to go find work as a mechanic rather than go to college as he planned. My nephew was born a little while later. They got married when she told him she was pregnant with their second kid, 15 female, and then had 2 more, both 10 male. Ever since my nephew was born, he's been literally one of my favorite people. I babysat him plenty of times, same with my other nibblings, and have spent my 20s as their gunkle and filled in that spot of being an adult but not their parent. My brother and me were close as kids, and I've been close with his kids as well. 5 years ago, my nephew came home with a blood typing assignment for his biology class, and he, his parents, and his sister all took part. The problem was that my nephew's blood type is impossible because my brother is O negative and my ex-sister-in-law A negative, and my nephew is A positive. This turned into a whole argument, and it transpired my nephew isn't biologically my brother's, and his ex-wife has been sleeping with someone else at the time and had suspected my oldest nephew wasn't my brother's since he was a little kid. They ended up getting a divorce, and my brother didn't seek custody of my oldest nephew and said he didn't want to see him. Privately, he told me that he needed time to process and would try to patch things up later. That idea was kind of ruined when my nephew turned up at my brother's apartment begging to talk. It turned into an argument between them. For context, our father has just passed a couple of months earlier. During the argument, my nephew said something along the lines of, "No wonder Mom effed somebody else. I bet Grandpa hated you." My brother cut things off then and there and has refused to see my nephew since. I basically stepped in as the main male figure in my nephew's life. Much as I dislike my ex-sister-in-law, she remarried, but he has basically no relationship with his stepdad. And his bio dad sends him a birthday card with $20, and that's basically it. I even took him out for his 18th birthday, and took him looking at universities, and now he goes to my alma mater. Now we're deciding on the guest list for my wedding, and I asked my brother how he wants to handle the situation. His ex-wife isn't invited, and his kids are sitting with him, so I suggested that my nephew sit with our mom so she can take him home or back to campus, whichever she'd rather do. My brother was angry I'd even invite my nephew after everything that happened and everything he said. He said it'd be like inviting my ex-sister-in-law. "He's not family, he's just the prick who disrespected our dad." I said, "He's being petty and childish, taking the words of a scared and angry 14-year-old so personally. He was a kid who said something crappy because his entire world was falling apart, and the person he'd relied on for his whole life was suddenly pulling away. And instead of being understanding and doing family therapy or something like a grown-up, my brother decided to give adult weight to a teenager's words and cut him off completely, and now he's asking me to do the same. My nephew has said he's okay with not going if it's causing an issue, but I told him not to be ridiculous. He's been a part of my life for more than half of it. I basically stepped in for my brother as the main man in his life. He's important to me, and I want him there for when I marry my person. I told him he shouldn't let my brother's inability to let go be his problem. My fiancé agrees with me. My mom and sister both say I need to see it from my brother's perspective. I think he's just being petty. Am I the a-hole? Let's get a very thorough analysis from the audience. Not the a-hole by a mile. You're absolutely right to stand by your nephew and include him in your wedding. Your nephew is clearly an important part of your life, and you've stepped up to be there for him when his world fell apart. He needs that stability and love now more than ever, especially after being rejected by the person he thought was his father for the most of his life. Your support likely means the world to him, and excluding him from your wedding to placate your brother's grudge would only add to the pain and rejection he's already experienced. Let's break this down. Teenagers say stupid things. Your nephew was a kid going through an incredibly traumatic experience. Finding out that the man you believe to be your father for your entire life isn't actually your biological father would turn anyone's world upside down. Teenagers are known for saying things that they don't mean when they're angry or scared. Your brother should recognize that and not hold a grudge over something said in a moment of heightened emotion and pain. Expecting adult-level maturity from a kid in that situation is unrealistic and unfair. Your brother's reaction. While it's understandable that your brother was hurt by the revelation and the subsequent argument, his reaction is extreme. It's been 5 years, and instead of finding a way to heal or move forward, he's holding on to anger and resentment. His refusal to even consider reconciliation, despite your nephew's attempts to reach out, speaks more to his own issues than to anything your nephew did. The grudge isn't just about what was said, it's about unresolved pain and betrayal. But that's something your brother should work through, ideally in therapy, rather than taking it out on a young man who's also hurting. Family dynamics. Your brother's demand to exclude your nephew is trying to force you to choose sides. Weddings are about celebrating love and bringing people together, not about deepening family divides. Your brother has no right to dictate who you consider family and who you want to share your special day with. By excluding your nephew, you'd be reinforcing your brother's narrative that his grudge is more important than the relationships you've built and the love you have for your nephew. Your support matters. By standing by your nephew, you're showing him that he still has a place in the family, that he's still loved, and that he's not alone. This support could be pivotal in his healing process. It's also important for him to see that not everyone is willing to cast him aside based on circumstances beyond his control. Your brother's refusal to move past his anger is his issue to deal with, not yours. You're not responsible for managing his emotions or protecting him from his own unresolved feelings. By inviting your nephew, you're honoring the bond you have with him and making it clear that he matters to you. Your brother may need to come to terms with that, but ultimately, his inability to let go shouldn't dictate your choices on your wedding day. Stick to your guns and don't let anyone make you feel guilty for choosing love, understanding, and support over petty grudges. You're not being insensitive, you're being compassionate and kind, and that makes you far from an a-hole. Update. I decided to follow some of your advice and talk to him about what happened and set some boundaries with my brother. So I saw him in person to talk things over. I told him that my nephew has been in my life for more than half my life. I was 14 when he was born. I've been his uncle for 19 years, and fundamentally, he's not the one that betrayed my brother. And while I can't imagine what must have been going through my brother's head at the time, it's not my battle to fight, and even if it were, I'm not obligated to take it out on a kid who had nothing to do with it. What he said was extremely crappy, yeah, but we're talking about someone who was 14 at the time and absolutely did not have the emotional maturity to handle the situation. I told him my nephew was open to the mutual apology. So bottom line, my nephew is invited and he's getting a +1, and I will seat him away from my brother if he wishes, but that's the most I will do. They can talk or not talk, kiss and make up or ignore each other all night, but I'm not making it my fight. My brother said he understood and would think about it. Then a couple days later, he drunk texted me a complete 180 and asked if I could invite ex-sister-in-law too, which I think is probably because his RSVP included his new girlfriend and his +1, and she's 26? I just know my niece complained it was gross that her dad's new girlfriend was a year closer to her age than his. My brother at his best is charming, confident, looks wise, kind of like a chunkier version of me, so not bad looking, and he had no trouble pulling women post-divorce once he got his confidence back and lost weight. I declined his drunk request, but his girlfriend is nice, and I told my niece that girlfriend is inside the half +7, so she can't be completely grossed out. Since some have asked about my nephew and ex-sister-in-law, I'll explain. She didn't know for sure that my nephew wasn't my brother's, but she strongly suspected, and she was sleeping with both her affair partner and my brother at the time. For about a year after the divorce, my nephew would throw the deception back in her face every time she reprimanded him, until I sat him down and pointed out that the more people he pushes away, the fewer people he has in his corner when things go south. Bottom line, she is his mother. After the debacle with my nephew, my brother and ex-sister-in-law We're more careful with my niece and the twins about not making adult problems their problems as well. Sorry this was not Scarlet A like many of you would have liked. She's not my favorite person, but I can sort of tolerate her. To answer the question about his bio dad, my nephew has expressed zero desire to meet him. He says he doesn't get why people think a perfect stranger could replace my brother, like being abandoned out of the blue never happened. My nephew RSVP'd yes and is taking his they friend. His significant other is non-binary, and that's what they're calling themselves. So, finger crossed, a happy ending. It sounds like your brother's holding on to a grudge tighter than a toddler with their favorite toy. Except this toy happens to be a whole person, your nephew, who's decided is suddenly not part of the family because of a teenager meltdown over a DNA test. I mean, sure, your nephew said something insensitive. He's 14 and found out the man he thought was his dad was actually just the guy who drove the minivan. Anyway, it's not your job to parent your brother or wipe his tears, especially when he's being so dramatic about a kid who's literally been in your life longer than most of your adult relationships. Have something to say? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time. And please put your chair back where you found it.